Welcome, fellow anglers, to the Good Karma Sport Fishing Podcast. I am Captain Ryan Van Fleet, your host here in the Florida Keys. Each week, I bring you fishing tips, stories, gear reviews, and more to help you maximize your fishing trip, catch big fish, and overall have fun. First, this is not a lure versus ballyhoo debate podcast. For those looking to become a better deadbait ballyhoo fisherman, this podcast is for you. This is part one of either a 2 or maybe a 3-part podcast. I'm not sure yet. I'll figure it out as I go. It's going to be a short podcast, and it's about prepping ballyhoo to pull at 7 to 9 miles an hour efficiently. The second and third parts will focus on the rigging, which will include some videos and the pictures. I'm slammed with charters, so I have very little time today, but I guarantee you this podcast will provide some kick-ass information that you will not find on YouTube ballyhoo instructional videos. I've been rigging ballyhoo the same way for many years. Now, rigging ballyhoo is a lot of work, and a lot of guys don't troll them for a reason, because it's a lot of work. Now, it took about 2 years to perfect, and the guys that fish with me on a regular basis are still amazed that I can pull a ballyhoo at 7 to 9 miles an hour for 2 to 3 hours without the bait washing out in all types of oceanic conditions. A lot of weed, heavy seas, and all that good stuff. Now, big dolphin, tuna, wahoo, sailfish, and marlin all love a dead bait ballyhoo trolled fast. Think about it like this, guys. The primary forage for big dolphin, especially in the Florida Keys, is flying fish. And 95% of all my big dolphin caught on the troll using a rigged deadbait ballyhoo had a flying fish in their stomach the size of a dink ballyhoo. I'm fishing almost every day, April through June, for dolphin. I start my day at 3 a.m. and rig 4 dozen ballyhoo every morning. Sometimes I rig 6 to 8 dozen or more during the months of May and June. Just depends on the bite. The last thing I want to be doing is rigging baits on the boat before the clients arrive, or be rigging baits on the fly in the middle of a hot bite when I'm 15 to 20 miles offshore in the middle of a charter. I never rig the night before because I don't feel the baits perform as well the next day. That's just me. Being efficient is very important. It takes me under 20 seconds to rig a ballyhoo, but when I plan on pulling them through heavy cover, it takes me about 40 seconds. Now, rigging ballyhoo to pull in heavy cover does require a couple of additional steps, which I'll go over in part 2 or 3 because I do it differently than 90% of the guys, and you're not going to see this on YouTube as well. So you're going to have to stay tuned for that because I just don't have enough time to cover it today. I started rigging for heavy cover last season when the Sargassum Sea basically showed up in the Florida Keys or all along the East Coast. Now, through experimentation, I perfected a way to pull rigged ballyhoo through heavy grass and not worry about damaging them. So I was very happy that I took the time to experiment, and it saved my ass last summer offshore. I start the prep process the night before by getting a bucket of salt water from Taverner Creek, then ice the salt water, and then I pour bionic brine in the saltwater ice bath. I really don't know how much I use, guys. Sometimes I pour a little over half of the bottle into the brine. So it just depends. You have to vary that and experiment. That's how I learned how to do it. Now, I've been using bionic brine for years. It works for me and has never let me down. Next, I pull a frozen pack of dink ballyhoo out of the freezer, and I put them in the brine overnight to thaw for, about 6 to 8 hours. I purchased all my ballyhoo in bulk, and these ballyhoo were caught in the winter months. Now, I keep a deep freezer full of dink ballyhoo at all times, and I plow through one full deep freezer in less than a month. That's a lot of ballyhoo rigging. So this is where you guys that are glued to all those YouTube videos on how to rig ballyhoo, and I'm sure you guys are watching them now because we're getting into dolphin season. This is where you guys are going to freak. The ballyhoo rigging videos I'm seeing just overcomplicate things and need to be so many minutes long for content and views. So I'm just going to tell you guys like it is and what I recommend. Now, before I tell you this, I have to remind you that I fish almost every day, April through June, and I rig a lot of ballyhoo, and I've been doing it the same way for many years. I also keep a detailed log as well. And just check out the photos of the big dolphin in my gallery my clients have caught over the years. Also the marlin, the tunas, and the wahoo. That should be enough to convince you to give my ballyhoo rigging a try. I do the exact opposite of what you see on YouTube channels or in sport fishing magazines when it comes to prepping the individual ballyhoo before rigging, and the fish love it. First, I work the ballyhoo tail so it has some wiggle. It's got to have a little wiggle, a little shake the tail feather action. I don't break the backbone of the ballyhoo, nor do I remove its inner stomach guts. I don't mess with removing any types of scales, and I want a natural-looking flying fish-looking bait. Now, when the fish grab a hold of the bait, it's soft, and they get a natural flavor. It just gets them fired up to return for more bites, gets other fish into the spread. Not to mention, it looks more natural. I have to remind you guys that we want a ballyhoo to look like a flying fish offshore, not a ballyhoo skipping. I think some people need to be reminded of this. How many ballyhoo have you seen flying offshore 15 miles? I've seen 0 over the course of the years. I've only seen this along the reef in the winter. Now, you destroy the profile of a bait when you start breaking its backbone and squeezing him. Not to mention, you destroy the scale flash. You want the scales to be intact. By keeping the bait intact, you control the ballyhoo at faster speeds without destroying the bait. Not to mention, my style of prepping ballyhoo is going to save you a ton of time in rigging and prepping. Now the bellies do get soft, but through experimentation, I've learned that I need to add some extra brine to the bellies after rigging them while they're in the tray. Okay, very important. You have to keep your ice chest on your boat very cold, or your ballyhoo will not last. Treat your ballyhoo like your sandwiches, guys. You treat them better than your food that you're going to eat, because the ballyhoo are going to get you the bites. Food can wait. So if you think about it like that, then you're going to be successful. But if you put your food first, you get the point. Use a good cooler and good ice. Now I'm going to show you guys my setup in either part 2 or part 3 of this podcast. Now, if you plan on slow trolling dead ballyhoo for sailfish this winter along the reef line, you need to go through all that prep that you see on the internet and make it swim like a ballyhoo. You buy those ringer swivels that seem to be doing a lot of work, and then Google ringer swivels, and then use circle hooks. I don't do any of that stuff, so it's not my game. The sailfish were keyed in on ballyhoo this winter as we had mass amounts of ballyhoo here. Now, guys, I'm here to help you get better, and I know a lot of you guys out there are dolphin fishermen, especially in South Florida. I'm going to continue on with part 2 and maybe part 3 when it comes to ballyhoo rigging. Part 2, I'm going to show you how specifically I rig the baits. This will require some photos and a little video. I'm swamped with charters through May, so I'm going to do my best to get that content to you. That's why it may be in small part, part 2, 3, maybe 4. And guys, tell your friends about my podcast. I know a lot of you guys are listening, but I really would like to see you guys start sharing it around a little bit. The more listeners I get, the more I'm going to share with you guys. Thanks for listening, and as always, please let me know if you have any questions. You can email me at goodkarmaryan@gmail.com. I'm going to be doing a question and answer podcast, so definitely email me. You can also find me on Facebook at Good Karma Fishing Charters, Instagram at Good Karma Sport Fishing _FL_keys. Also, please share this podcast with a fellow angler and check out my website, goodkarmasportfishing.com, and sign up for the monthly newsletter and the free fishing tips. I aim to provide you with fishing tips and information so you can make the best out of your time fishing. Thanks for listening, and remember, anytime you're fishing, it's all good.